Shubhodaya. Welcome you all to the Maitrimilan session. Today, let me take you back to the history of this particular culture for a while. 1857 war was the first elaborate war of freedom of this country. Unfortunately, it didn't succeed. That was fought by Rani Jhansi Lakshmi, supported by several others. But then, at that time, it was in history books, it was not projected as something very big event because they didn't want to project it very big. But the impact of this, you could see that after this 1857 war, the British government, which was colonial rule that was there here, has changed the whole phase of it. Until that time, it was under East India Company, then they took over. The Viceroy came and then British started complete power over this particular country. That itself shows that how important that war of freedom was. And at that time, they thought that why this country was so unique and its own culture and everything. Macaulay was the person to investigate, and then he gave initial report saying that you might do anything with this country, but that you cannot interfere, involve into their culture, because it is something which is deep-rooted and has got a lot of information behind it. Nowhere else the kind of detail that is available in this particular culture it has. Therefore, what we need to do is to see that how we can separate this country from their culture. So this was the proposal given. As an important part of it, what they did was that the most ancient literature that was there for the mankind, they are the Vedas, and all the knowledge that comes from the Vedas, the idea was that this particular literature has to be separated from this culture. One best way to do it is to see that divide and provide that kind of a thing. They said that originally they created one philosophy called as the Aryan invasion. That means some Aryans have invaded this country and they are the intellectual people. They were highly knowledgeable and they brought these 4 Vedas and the allied literature to this country. Otherwise, this country did not have all that literature because the country did not have Aryans. This country belonged to Dravidians. This is how they have created a picture which was not true. In the sense that historically there is an invasion. You could always see the signs of invasion, the ruins and distortion that happened. But that kind of a thing was not there at all in this particular culture. So therefore, right from the time that they have created this Aryan invasion theory, by a linguist called as the Max Muller, from that time onwards that there were always objections that were coming, but somehow they have suppressed the expressions, and then all that they said was basically that Aryans came from outside and brought this Vedas. But in the recent times, last about 30-40 years, that the scientists have involved, and then proved that there is nothing like an Aryan invasion. All that literature belonged to this country. Vedas, which are supposed to be more than 7,000-8,000 years old, belong to this particular culture only. So then we need to re-establish. The amount of literature that was there in this culture was so much that during the time of Nalanda University that was there, when Muhammad Khilji has burned that library in that university, thinking that the library, if you burn it, then the literature will go away. And that he burned that library for 3 times, 3 months' time, each time, continuously burning. So much of literature was lost. In spite of all that literature that was lost, whatever the remaining literature that we could retrieve, and that is so much that in that literature, somebody has to learn everything. It takes one's lifetime is not sufficient to even learn about 10% of the literature that is there. So such an exhaustive kind of an information, knowledge that was there in this culture. And these 4 Vedas, which are supposed to be the storehouse of this lot of that knowledge, belongs to this place. Now people can realize that how these Vedas are connected to this place. When you look at that Vedas, it has every information that is there in those Vedas. Like for example, music information about that is there. And about the Upanishads, what we discussed about, they are also there. The whole of ideas of yoga that's there in the Vedas. Not only that, Vedas also contain knowledge about the town planning, knowledge about metallurgy. Like that variety of knowledge that is there in the Vedas. But then, when you look at these Vedas, this knowledge that is there is not in a chronological order or in a particular topic-wise order. It is not like somebody has written a book about all this knowledge. It is not like that. But then when you cursorily look at it, then you can get an information. This Vedas seem to be like somebody maintain a diary of whatever that is going on in this particular culture. For about more than 100 years to 200 years, whatever the diary that maintained, and all that information that contains in a diary is the way that is given in the Vedas. It may not be one person, but maybe a group of persons, and the name of and the title of those persons are supposed to be Vyasa. Therefore, we have references of not one Vyasa. There are several Vyasas, Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, Vaishampayana Vyasa, like that. So it seemed to be a group of people who maintained the diary of this particular land. And what weight, what area, what place this particular diary is maintained about the Vedas, when you look at it, the Rigveda seemed to be the diary that is maintained in the north-western part of this particular country, right from the way that you see that Punjab, the Gujarat, all the way right up to Iran, all that culture that was there belonged to this particular Rigveda period, and descriptions are there in Rigveda. Similarly, the northern part of the whole land, that right up to Russia, that maintains, continues on this particular thing, that's what given in the Yajurveda. North-eastern part of this whole country's culture, that is right from the Assam, Odisha and Bengal, all the way right up to Thailand, it's all Samaveda. And the evidences of that you can see in the Samaveda, because Samaveda basically talks about art, architecture, culture, music, and the performance arts. All that details you can find it in the Samaveda. That's why any music, anything that comes, it has a basis from the Samaveda. So this is how this culture is there, that you can see that whether it is the Manipur that you see, or Assam, or Bengal, or even right up to Thailand, Indonesia, you can see the dance and music and culture that's available. Shows that all these things belong to Samaveda. Central and southern part of India, and that's what is covered in the Atharva Veda. So these four places, four directions are given by these four Vedas. But as I said, somebody maintained the diary. That is the reason why. Like, say for example, somebody comes to Prashanti, maintains a diary. Then morning there is breakfast, and after that people go for parameters and do this, or some people go for Karma Yoga. So it's like all these activities and their details are given in the haphazard way. It is not like in topic wise it is maintained. Diary is also like that. But then there is one more thing that Swami Vivekananda, when he was referred about these texts called as Upanishad, Vedas, and this culture, when he was at the Parliament of World Religions, when he said that I represent this most ancient culture to the most recent country, that's what is America. When they asked, you said ancient culture, why do you say that this ancient culture, it survived for such a long time, several thousands of years? He said, very beautifully, he expressed one very important idea. He said, every culture has a narrow current. And it is that narrow current which decides about the culture's style, life, and its vibrance. And when Swamiji said, he said it only one word. But then, when you look back into that, what Swamiji said, it makes such a big sense. Like even if today you see that any culture, it has got its own narrow current. That means central core value, core activity that's happening. Like the way that you can go to European culture, when you see it, it's all about heaviness, it's about sturdiness. That's why their cars are steady, roads are steady. Germany, the roads are, there is no upper speed limit. Autobahn. That shows that whatever the strength that they have, German recognizes that kind of a thing. Similarly, when you look at England, the nerve current of England culture is regality. Everywhere there is royalness that you can see. That's why their postal service is Her Majesty's Postal Service. And you go to England, you can see the Trafalgar Square or Buckingham Palace. All these things show that the nerve current of their culture is supposed to be royal. That's why anything that happens in the royal way, for the British it's a big pride. That's why a child is born with the royal family, it was something everybody, the whole country celebrates. It is that way the royalty is given very great importance in England, and that's rightly so. Similarly, if you go to the French and Italian, you can see the beauty, art, and then fashion. These are all the things which is the nerve current in that particular culture. In America, when you go, the nerve current of American culture is the business, is the money. That's why you can see that anywhere in the world that you go, the skyline is different, whereas when you go to America, any city, the skyline, the big buildings that you see are supposed to be the money buildings. That's why insurance are the bank buildings. So that shows that is what is their value. In America also, people think of only in terms of the psychology, that current, that culture gives us the idea in money. Like the way that for several thousands of years, yoga existed in this country, but nobody looked at yoga in terms of money. In fact, yoga is considerably something like where you give up everything and then go for yoga. Whereas the moment the same yoga entered into America, it got the material term, money term. That's why today in America, when people talk about, they say, oh, you are in yoga? It's a $4 billion business. I mean, we never thought it to be business. Our yogis never thought it to be business, but then America talks about it. There it's always in terms of money. I went to Boston to teach them some yoga center and yoga lessons and some center. And then I was giving them, yoga practices of pranayama practices. I said 3 vibhaga pranayama, sexual breathing. And I asked them to do the abdominal breathing. Inhale, tummy should come out. And they were like this, that they inhale, tummy goes in and then chest comes out. No, tummy should come out. It was very difficult for them. And to teach them some trick to see that how they can do the tummy breathing. So I took one of them and then made them to lie down and then asked them to do tummy breathing, push the tummy up. They couldn't do it. And there was a Bhagavad Gita that was there, a small little book, which is half a pound book. I put them on their stomach and said, now push it up by inhaling. And that girl should easily push it. And then she was able to do it. She was so happy. Everybody excited. They could do the abdominal breathing. Next year when I went to that same yoga center, I could find in their sales section half a pound sandbag, said abdominal breathing bag, $10 a piece. They could make a business. When I taught them the nasal, cleaning, and that what is basically neti that we use. In fact, our ancient sages, they used to use only the common, a small little simple thing. And then later on, we developed this one plastic kind of a thing which to cost any small little amount. And then I took it there with me and then I introduced them just how to do the neti so that nasal cleansing can take place and allergy can come out of it. Very happy, fascinated, good results. And later on, another 5 years later when I went there, they have a very beautiful packet and they have got a very fancy name, and that name is Nasal Cleaning Irrigation Equipment. And that is $50 a piece. And on top of it, in a big letters, they say, a sachet of salt is free, bonus. See, what we thought is a simple thing, they make it as a business out of it, but that's what is American culture. Similarly, when you go to Japan, the central core of Japanese culture is miniature. Everything is small. Roads are small, towns are small, and then cars are small, but the most important thing is, whatever the big car, big roads have the efficiency in America, in Japan, equally efficient. You see the cars, how beautifully they go. Roads are so small, but how beautifully they manage in those roads. Miniature is their culture. Similarly, in India, we have huge mango tree. Japan has a bonsai mango tree, giving the same mangoes. It's all miniature is their particular culture. And I don't know whether probably God has the same reason for that. The Japan king and queen are always short stature. They are not 5 feet for 4 inches, 3 inches like that. They are not tall. So it all looks like that there is every culture is a nerve current. And what is the nerve current of this particular culture? What Vivekananda said, it is a spirituality. It is what is given in the Vedas, in the Upanishads. Upanishads are the part of the literature which gives about the spirituality. That's the most important thing about the nerve current of this particular culture. When I say nerve current of this particular culture, it's not one particular place. It's a nerve current of place, not the nerve current one feels, individually feels about it. Like for example, individually a person may be engaged in so many other things. Like a metallurgy person is introduced, for him, the core activity is supposed to be metallurgy. For a barber, the core activity is barber. But then the nerve current of the place, the core activity of that place, and the rest of it is the periphery activity. It's like the way somebody comes to Prashanti and then wants to maintain a diary of this particular place. When he says that, yes, morning some man comes and then provides food, milk, and another man comes and then provides vegetables, and some Maitrimilan is going on, and something is going on, some Karma Yoga is going on. It's all various activities that are there going on in this particular place, but we know one thing. These are all the peripheral activities. The core of this particular culture in Prashanti is yoga. Anybody is doing any activity, it is to see that either directly he is involved in yoga or subserving the yoga cause. Whether it is the kitchen fellow who is working in the kitchen cooking the food, he is also helping to see that the core activity called as yoga is taken care of. Therefore, this Prashanti has the core activity. It belongs to this particular place, not for a particular individual. Like somebody comes to Prashanti, lives for 2-3 months, and then goes back. In his country, is talking to his friend and say, oh, Prashanti is a wonderful place, you should visit, you should stay there, you should enjoy everything. Then if you ask him, what is the best thing that you enjoy? He says, the breakfast is the best thing. See, for him the core activity is breakfast, not for this particular place. Like that, when you look at this culture, there were so many things that were going on. We have wonderful temples, we have wonderful architecture, we have wonderful the town planning, and then music, dance. You name it, there's everything that is provided in this culture extraordinary. Everything is like that. Even if you see metallurgy, the amount of activity that they have done in this particular culture, that we know in metallurgy that two metals you cannot put them together because their expansion quotients are different. Therefore, they can create a brittleness in the metals. Whereas in this culture, we knew very well for the last several thousands of years what is called as Panchaloha. Panchaloha means 5 different metals we can put them together in equal terms, and not just one against the other brittle, but then one augmenting the other, helping the other to improve their quality. Recently after the tsunami, they found out a particular idol and they tested it. They found the idol was 12,000 years old and it is Ashtaloha. That means to say 8 different metals were put together and formed that. You know, it is 12,000 years. At that time, I don't know whether anywhere in the world people knew what is called as metal and what is called as non-metal. And out of that metal also 8 different metals, and then put them together in a particular order. And this is something which is extraordinary about this particular culture, that there were so many things that were there in various activities that were developed. But all these things are in the Vedas, haphazardly recorded here and there. But when you look at this Vedas, you can divide that into 2 different kind of literature. And one is called as Jnana Kanda and the other is the Karma Kanda. Karma Kanda is the peripheral activity. It's all about the agriculture, about the land formation, about this, about that. So many things that are there given in the form of what about this culture that is going on in this particular place. But then the core is given in the form of Jnana Kanda. The Jnana Kanda is something which is extraordinary. Karma Kanda can undergo a change, like what was happening, say, several thousands of years ago about agriculture. Today we have new equipment and everything can be changed. Similarly, whatever that the weaving and the making the clothes and all that, which was the description that is available in the earlier days, now today we can change it because the whole things have changed. Therefore, Karma Kanda can undergo a change because as the time changes, as the technology changes, that we can change the Karma Kanda. it's not applicable. But then Jnanakanda is something which is always there, which does not remain changed at all, because Jnanakanda looks at the core issues of this particular mankind. Core issues of mankind, which was there, say, 10,000 years ago, or 5,000 years ago, today, or 1,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago, it will not change. What is it Jnanakanda is talking about? The Jnanakanda talks about the basic questions of the mankind. And what are the basic questions of the mankind? It is like this: where from this creation has come? What is the origin of creation? Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti. Such questions are dealt with in Upanishads, and these are called as Upanishads. And second thing is the question like what happens after death. In fact, today every scientist concerned about what happens after death. He may be a biological scientist, he may be a genetic scientist, or he may be a plant scientist. Everybody start thinking that where after the death, what happens, whether something survives after death or not. So this was the most important question that Vedas talk about, Upanishads talk about. Similarly, questions like the things like why that there is so much of variation in this. Is that variation original, or is it all coming from one single source? And that single source, is it called as God? Does God exist? These are the questions which are very fundamental for the mankind. And these questions were addressed to the mankind 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, even today they are asked, and then 1,000 years later also it will be asked. But the most important thing is that these questions seem to be not really very useful questions. What do we do with that? Life has to go on. But then some people get seriously caught up with these questions. They are extraordinary. And Upanishad students are the people who are really caught up with this question very seriously. That's how we have the answers for these Upanishads. That is the greatest of these Upanishads. Extraordinary, wonderful literature. Like normal man is not really concerned about the question called as, does God really exist? But then look at the way. We come across that question once in a while, very sporadically or not very seriously. Like for example, you are flying in the sky 30,000 feet above the ground level, and then suddenly the plane started going haywire because of the turbulence that is there. And suddenly at that time we remember God. Oh my God, where are you? In fact, I'm very close to you. Why don't you take care of it? But the moment after another 5 minutes, when the plane settles down and everything is fine, and the authors in the plan, the organizer there, the captain announces that plane has crossed this turbulence, now everything is safe, only the service starts, and the air hostesses, they start serving, and immediately we also say, oh God, okay, here there are people to take care of me, you take care of yourself, I'm not really bothered about it. That means our anxiety about God is so minimal, whereas somebody who has everything is fine, but suddenly was caught up with this question, does God exist? That was what Naren Swami Vivekananda, when he was 14-year-old, he was caught up with this question, does God exist? He went around asking for an answer from various people, supposed to be saints who are talking about God. He said, have you seen God? Nobody would affirmatively say that I've seen God. Everybody would dart the question saying that God is omnipresent, God is omniscient, God is everywhere. But then the more and more that he heard that kind of an answer, his interest grew more and more. He was so seriously, deeply caught up with that question, he would constantly get involved in that question. He would walk, while walking he was only thinking of that. Sitting in the classroom he is thinking of that. Walking in the street, slippers fall off, he doesn't notice that. Sitting for food, he doesn't know what he is eating, he was caught up with this question. This went on for more than 6 months. People thought that he became mad. When that was the situation, this boy, 14-year-old boy, when he was sitting in the class, everybody thought that, and sitting in the class looking through the window and then looking at the sky, people thought he became mad. When an English teacher came there teaching about English poetry, while reading one particular poem, he said, the poet must have had God experience while writing this poetry. Immediately this boy became alert and he started the questioning saying that, who is this author? Is this author available? Is there a way that I can go and talk to him about God? The teacher smiled and said that this answer belongs to this poet, belongs to 17th century, it doesn't exist now. It was a depressing answer. But the boy did not stop there. He said, you may be people, knowing people who have this kind of an experience. Is there somebody today having that experience? And he said, I don't think any poet who has got that kind of an experience today. Another depressing answer, but the next say, I know that there is one person who is a temple priest and that he seemed to have got experience. I have only heard about him. I don't know about. His name is Ramakrishna and he is Thakur. And only he is the person who seemed to be talking to God. That was the first glimpse Swami Vivekananda. Naren received it, jumped out of his seat, ran all the way to Dakshineshwar to meet with Thakur Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Because Vivekananda met Thakur and Sharda Devi, and because that the whole journey went on, today we have a great person like Vivekananda, and then all the teachings that made what we are today. We should really salute this trio who have really created that Upanishad kind of a literature for us, and that's what is Vivekananda, Ramakrishna and Sharda.